Welcome back to another, the second break session of this second cipher of the day and week. All right, hope everyone is getting at least partially what they need done. I need to remember to actually click the create a highlight video button because I forgot to do that last time and didn't have a video. So it's cool either way because the link will show the like the graphic image that I created for the whole untilit.works. So either one is cool. So, all right. Okay. Like I said, hopefully everyone is doing well. Remember, if you want to join the chat room, just click join the chat room and you'll be able to chat and ask questions. Cool. So now, like I said, this break session, we're going to go over something that a coworker of mine, Tanya, on one of these past streams was asking about, and it was about as far as like time and handling time. Let's see, in JavaScript, because Python has a thing that's kind of built in. Now, JavaScript also has a thing that's built in, except that it's very dense to get through. So let's get started. Share my screen. All right, I don't think I'm going to need any sound, so let's do this. Cool. So hopefully you can see that. All right. Now, so this is the website, right? And let's say if you go to videos, see all these different timestamps. These are all a web component that I created, just used over and over again, inputted with a certain timestamp. And it will display the data based on your local time zone. So it's a whole thing. And some of the things I used to get it working were the date API. And so JavaScript date objects. So this is from MDN, Mozilla Developer Networks. Yeah, so this is the date like API and or objects. And they represent a single moment in time in a particular platform independent format. And so I don't know if you've ever seen where sometimes in code, if you do code like in JavaScript, you see like date.now. That'll give you the exact time at when that was called in the Unix timestamp code thing. And that's from here we go. So yeah, so epoch and timestamps. And so when you do like date.now, that's the Unix epoch. The number of seconds elapsed that have elapsed since midnight on January 1st, 1970 UTC. And that's a whole other thing, time zones and having to deal with all that. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. It's pretty cool. But like I said, it's kind of dense and there's a lot of stuff to try and figure out with it. And that's just like the date. Now, if you want to do like some international stuff, and have it show up in the way of that person's local machine. For example, some countries go month, date, year, where some do date, month, year kind of thing, right? And so that brings into this whole international thing here. And so this internationalization API, and there's a whole lot of stuff there. So you, like the same date time format, plural rules, relative time date. So it gets kind of dense. So there was and this is what I couldn't remember before, but there are like different libraries that were used to help with this. So like the big one was Moment.js, momentjs.com. And I believe it's still being used all over, like even like in newer projects. But they say on their website that you can see right here, it says, considering using Moment.js in your project, there may be better modern alternatives. For more details and recommendations, please see the project status in the docs. So, all right, so just kind of before we do that, just kind of go through. So you like download Moment.js, or you could also get it through like a CDN, content delivery network. And so this is Moment.js by itself, and then this is with the different locales to be able to show in different like time zones and countries, like how it is, how date and time is represented in locally. So it's a bigger file. And so they had all these different ways of you being able to install it. And then so this is like the format of how it works. So you do like moment, and then format how you want it to be, and it would spit that out for you that way. So like for today, like it shows today and now. Then you can do all those other things. Cool. Right. Then relative time. So then you'd put in date, the actual format that it's in, so that it would understand like, all right, the first four numbers are the year kind of thing. And then it would do like 10 years ago. So, and it was like very semantic. So you'd say like from now. So it would calculate that the time you just put in from the time that the thing runs, and it would give you like in like plain wording the relative time, which was because to do that in the raw JavaScript is a lot. So it's pretty cool. Same thing for all this stuff here. And then you get like the calendar time, because sometimes because of time zones, when you try to call one thing from one time, and then if like the we call it like the like daylight savings time changes, it would be off by like an hour kind of thing. So it takes all that into consideration as well. So it's pretty cool. And then, like I said, you can get the days. So like one day from tomorrow. So moment at this time, one day. Give me the like calendar time, I guess, as it says there. So like in days. So it understands like, all right, one, and you want it from now. That means it's tomorrow, kind of thing. So it's pretty cool. So it's like, yeah, give me 1 day. So programmatically, you can see how this would help and makes things a lot easier. But the thing is that, oh, then here's all the different, with the locales, these are the things that are loaded when you did that second one. So if you go to that project status, it will say that, hey, Moment.js has been successfully used in millions of projects. And we are happy to have contributed to making date and time better on the web. So, but as of last year, September 2020, Moment gets over 12 million downloads per week. Wow. However, Moment was built for the previous era of the JavaScript ecosystem. The modern web looks much different these days. Moment has evolved somewhat over the years, but it has essentially the same design as it did when it was created in 2011. So they've had this for like 10 years, which is kind of amazing. Given how many projects depend on it, we choose to prioritize stability over new features. So what they're saying is like, hey, we're going to try to make sure, because since so many projects rely on this, we want to make sure that it's stable for those projects instead of creating new features, because the browsers have been catching up over those like 10 years to be able to make things work. So they're not going to work on new features, just kind of keep it stable. And so they said, so they said here that, hey, so modern web browsers and Node.js expose internationalization and time zone support via the INTL, Internationalization API, which we looked at earlier. And then, so they have different libraries that they're kind of like recommending, like, hey, you could try to do this. And then they have different links to saying like, to kind of decide whether or not you need Moment.js, because there are some things where, just like with jQuery, a lot of the things that are in jQuery are in the browsers now. So, so depending on your use case, you may not need jQuery. So it's the same kind of thing. As the browser gets more and more powerful and capable, a lot of the libraries that were needed to kind of smooth the rough edges kind of like aren't really needed anymore for most tasks. So yeah, so that's pretty cool. So they're saying we now generally consider Moment to be a legacy project in maintenance mode. It is not dead, but is indeed done. So they're like, yeah. So cool. So they're so you can check that out, more information. All right. So now they mentioned Luxor or Luxon, Luxon. So that's this here. And so it's just another library. It's like a smaller, and then like it says, powerful, modern, and friendly wrapper for JavaScript dates and times. So it's like a smaller version of Moment. And I think it's using more of the modern, like I said, APIs that weren't around when moment came out and was needed. So yeah, cool. So then a lot of stuff here. Cool. You can check it out. So you do like date time now. You can set the time zone, like week past kind of thing. So minus 1 week and the end of the day. And so, yeah, so it's like semantically pretty straightforward on how it goes. So I think I opened up the demo. Did I open up the demo? Yeah. So here are all the different things. So like date time now will give you it the date time in this format, which is like the basic format. I might need to make this bigger. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, yeah. Okay. Then you see, like now, if you want to convert it to UTC, so the date time that now gives you your local time, whereas the what you call it, the date time now to UTC will give you right the Greenwich Mean like time zone 0, 1 there, and then you can set the different time zones and stuff here. So it makes it a little bit easier. It's like I said, it's a wrapper around the date time and internationalization APIs. Cool. Yeah. So like you see here, so just like with the moment.js, it helps make the relative time stuff a little bit better. So you see date time. So right now plus a day, and it'll tell you tomorrow. That's pretty cool. So and then yesterday, next month, and that's pretty, and it gives you like in French, so you can set the locale. So that's pretty cool. All right. So that's Luxon. So that's another library in that in for JavaScript to be able to deal with date and time. This one here. This is another one called Date FNS. I've heard pretty good things about this one, how it's like really like a small library and it's quick. So this is another one you can check out. So here is kind of like how it works, how it's handled. You do like a new date. You have this format that you're pulling in from Date FNS, and it'll like spit out what you need. So it's kind of like a different way of writing it, but it's still pretty cool. Yeah, and so you see like the same relative, because that's the thing, like being able to do relative time. So like last Friday, that's kind of difficult. And like 3 days ago, that gets kind of hairy when you're doing with date and times because there's so many things. Because like I said, you have to deal with time zones. If it's like a leap year, if it's daylight savings time, some places don't not celebrate, but recognize daylight savings. You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's another one. And now this is the temporal API, and it is to try and like bring into the browser the same sort of things that these previous libraries were bringing along, right? So, like I said, the browser gets more and more powerful and more capable because it sees like, oh, there's an issue with whole date and time that these libraries, so many libraries need to be done. So once it gets to that sort of level, then the committee is like, all right, maybe we need to make this a thing, because you saw from moment.js, it said millions of projects rely on it. So now, like, hey, let's just bake that into the browser. So so it's the temporal API, and that's the GitHub for it. So you can check out the code. And then here's the actual like documentation for it. I'm gonna go a little bit over, but it's kind of want to go over. I'm almost done. So, like it says here, date has been a long-standing pain point in ECMAScript, JavaScript. This is a proposal for temporal, a global object that acts as a top-level namespace like math. So, you ever done like math.random? So you'll be able to do like that. So it's right there in the window object. So you can just call it from anywhere, basically. That brings a modern date/time API to ECMAScript JavaScript. When they say ECMAScript, is basically JavaScript, like modern JavaScript. Language. Now for a detailed look at some of the problems with date and motivation. So they have like blog posts. You can check that out. Let's see. But yeah, you can look up temporal API. And see, this would be a good use case to be able to make that related links or for the archive. So this is motivation for me to get that done here for untilit.works. So I'll probably work on that this week or something. So these are some of the problems: providing easy to use APIs for date and time computation. So like I said, like tomorrow, last week, 3 days, all those sorts of things. First class support for all time zones, including DST, so daylight savings time, safe arithmetic. Like I said, because it gets hairy with the time zone with the daylight saving stuff. Dealing with only with objects representing fixed dates and times, so you don't have to worry about like more. It's just objects that you have to deal with, so nothing more than that. Then yeah, so parsing a strictly specified string format, so it's like a standard basically. And then so non-Gregorian calendars, I'm not even really sure what that means. I think that may be because certain calendars are on a different time like thing, I think. So yeah, like I said, there's a whole lot to dealing with date and time. Yeah, and so cool. So then they have like the documentation stuff, which is cool. So like the basic is like get the exact time since midnight, January 1st, 1970. So it's temporal.now.instant. Whereas before it was like with the date is like date.now. So I guess it's equivalent to that. And then now you get like the time zone directly, which is pretty cool. And then and then you get the current date time and wall clock time in the system time zone and specified calendar. So based on the person's where like it's running. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. Okay. So now what I thought was cool is that they have this cookbook section, and it's to help you get started and learn the ins and outs. So like basically examples, like real world examples, things that you may want to get done. And so this is pretty cool. So it kind of goes through all the different stuff. So like sorting. So if you had like a whole bunch of timestamps, you'd be able to sort them. Here's like getting the current time, like we said before. Cool. The Unix timestamp. Now, what I thought was cool, and there's this thing like temporal types and legacy date and just a lot. So yeah. So like you see, like this is the previous way of getting like the date object. So you put in the time thing, and now so to get it, there's a converter. It looks like so you can do the old. Here's a two temporal instant. So converting it, and then saying that hey, yes, they are the same, pretty much. So yeah, that's pretty cool. What else? Oh, now this is what I like here. So calendar input element. So like with the calendar input, that's just like an input date picker kind of thing. And so, because the input element is like super OP, like overpowered. Like just by selecting the type, you get like 10 different kinds of inputs: color input, date input, text input. What's other inputs? Like time, date time. It's amazing. So yeah, so shout to the input elements. All right, so then like do this. Let's say, so you can only choose, so they have it set up that you can't go forward, only back. So you can use the temporal to be able to set boundaries on the input date time element. Pretty cool. Converting between types. Cool. So there was one where it's like arithmetic. Here's the sorting. The arithmetic one was pretty cool. Time zone conversions, which has always been kind of like difficult. Preserving exact time because things like kind of shift sometimes. Daily occurrence. Oh yeah, this daily occurrence. I think what is this one? It was the exact time score corresponding to a daily occurrence, starting at a particular date. So you could say like every day at whatever time, and I think it will pop out like those date objects that correspond to what you're looking for. So like I want to be able to have the next 10 days at 10 p.m. and it would give you all that. So it's pretty cool. So yeah, you can see right here. So it says like they wanted from 8 a.m. on the third on I think that's the month. So March 10th, 2017. And it's like, all right, give me the American West Coast time, Los Angeles time, and gives you the start, the time, and the zone. Do they say so? Yeah, so this is for like a daily meeting at 8 a.m. That's 8 a.m. California time. Now it gives it to you by the days. I wonder if there's a way to set like how many. I'm not sure, but as you can see here, you're like, all right. So I guess you could click a button or what have you. And so it'd be like start at the 10th because you asked to start at the 10th. And then the time zone. So 8, I guess, is the UTC. Yeah, and so that gives you the time 0, the time zone. Again, time zones is tricky, so just have to check that out. And so it will. Oh, and see, then you keep going. So this is what the thing is that your code may not actually take this into consideration because you see here, and they chose March because we in America we have our time zone change there. So you see here, so 1600 hours, 310, 311, 1600 hours. Then the time zone changes, so it goes back an hour because no, it's what is it? Fall back, spring forward. So we actually go forward an hour, so we lose an hour. So you see, it goes from 1600 to 1500. And so it just does that automatically. That's pretty cool. Then, yeah, so UTC offset. There was an arithmetic one. Oh, and you can like a graph and stuff. You can plot it. It's pretty cool. All right. There's that. There's after this, I think. Yeah, arithmetic. Here we go. So now you can enter in a future date, right? I wonder if I do behind. I didn't try this. If I tried last week. Oh, see, it gave me -7 days. So let's try next week and a day. Submit that. Okay, so yeah, 8 days. So it's able to connect. But I wonder if they have like a semantic one where you could set like tomorrow, last week. Oh, wait, here we go. There's a duration now and past, future zones. But so the thing is, like, this is still being discussed. So you can see, my bad, I'm still kind of scrolling through it. I kind of went over it quickly, but come on, scroll to the top. So like you see, said this is a stage 3 proposal is experimental. Do try it and report bugs, but don't use it in production. So that's what like stage 3 is at, because things will probably change. Well, it may change. So it's good. It's getting there, but don't use it in production yet because it may change. And so, yeah. So that's where we're at now as far as with JavaScript dates and time. It is a lot, and I'm glad to see it's being kind of baked into the browser. All right, so that's going to be it. Let me set this timer. I'm going to get y'all back to work. Cool. So, yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up. Like, I'm going to start playing around with it a little bit more because, like I said, I deal with time a lot, especially like with planning events and things. I wanted, like, for example, this thing, I set for untilit.works, I set the time, my local time, and then I do some calculations so that somebody, wherever they're looking at that same page, it will, the web component takes into consideration that person's time zone and their locale, and it will format everything, the date and time, to a way that they locally would know, and it'd be in their time zone. The time would be their time, not my time where I am, kind of thing. So it was a lot of stuff, and just trying to get it to work and testing it and stuff. But I think it works, and it seems, I asked people in different time zones to check it out, and it was in their time, so it was cool. So yeah, all right. So I got this time thing here. All right, so I'm going to be out of here. Get y'all back to work once again. Thanks for hanging out. The time that I went over here, I'll add more on the final work session. So we got one more break session, 15 minutes after the hour. So if there's anything that you wanted to show or anything, do like a show and tell, that would be the time. All right, so cool. Thank you all once again for hanging out. And hopefully maybe you learned something new about JavaScript date and time, and how, like, what I like about the web is that it listens, I guess, to the needs of like the people using it. So they're like, hey, a lot of people want to know about date and time. Let's bake that into the browser so that it's available, and just make it a web standard. And so it's pretty cool. So like people will create their own solutions because they have their own needs, And then if that needs get bigger and more widespread, then the browser's like, oh, all right, y'all needed that? Cool, here you go, kind of thing. And then they work together. So I'm pretty sure maybe they spoke with people from the different libraries, like, hey, what have you seen, kind of thing. And not just, they weren't just like, all right, here you go. I think like that's why they have like the committees and they're talking about things and discussing things. And it's kind of amazing what goes on behind the scenes with the web and JavaScript in general. So yeah, so cool. Thank you all again for hanging out. I'm going to start this screen share and we're going to be out of here. So again, thank you. Before I do that, I need to remember to click create a highlight video because I did not do that last time and I didn't have it. So word. All right. Again, thank you all for hanging out. We will see you 15 minutes after the hour. Feel free if you have any questions or anything, feel free to use the website, however you see. All right, cool. As long as it's legal. All right. Again, thanks, y'all.
Now I feel so strong, and I want to say thank you for being there when the brother had nowhere to turn to. You were there, and I feel like and everybody says we spread a love like I want to say thank you for holding on when a brother was down and out.